What's going on, guys? It's another beautiful fall day here in South Georgia, and we're over at the Hoss Greenhouse looking at all these beautiful berries and brassicas that we've grown out and we're shipping out to you guys. So we've been giving you guys a bunch of information on what to do with your blackberries, strawberries, and brassicas when you get them, but we haven't talked too much about blueberries. So today I want to give you a few tips on variety and species selection for our region and a few things you need to watch out for when you go to plant these. So there are many different species of blueberries. Some perform well here, some perform better on the west coast, and most of the time you're going to see those different species that perform well up north. The ones up north are the northern highbush and the low bush. You don't typically see those as they don't produce well here. You may see some northern highbush in the mountainous regions, but we tend to stick to these two. The two species I'm specifically referring to are the southern highbush variety, which we carry, and the Rabbiteye. First, we're going to look at the southern highbush because it's specifically known to have low chilling hours, which is perfect for our region. It's drought tolerant, it stands up to the heat, and it produces really delicious big berries. So we're going to start specifically with the southern highbush because it's mainly found in the southern gardens around here, and it gives us those early harvests. So you typically see gardeners growing these because they're trying to get those early bountiful harvests. These typically range between 300 to 900 chilling hours, which is pretty low, which allows you to get those early harvests in season, but they also can range to late season, so you get that full season, and you can extend that harvest period. So the first of two southern highbush varieties that we carry is Emerald. This beautiful variety, typically unlike the other one, is green. It has beautiful foliage that's going to fall off in the fall, and it typically has 200 to 300 chilling hours, which breaks dormancy pretty early in the season, so you get those early season blooms and early season berries. That can be a drawback of this variety, as you'll sometimes experience a late frost that will kill back some of the buds. You're going to want to clip those off to prevent any disease from entering your plant. They tend to grow wider than they do more narrow, which is not typical with your berries, as it is a southern highbush, so you want it to get as tall as possible, but it's still a beautiful landscaping variety that you can use as an edible perennial. The second of the two varieties that we carry is Legacy. Now you see it may have some of this purplish pink or red foliage on it. Some of you may have to correct me if I'm wrong. We labeled this as a southern highbush variety, but I've seen other sources say this may be a northern highbush variety. I'm not quite sure, but it's said to produce really well in our region, so I think we can just roll with the southern highbush variety. This is also really good for your edible landscaping, and it doesn't tend to drop leaves as quick in the winter as most of your other varieties. It does have a little bit of an extended chill hour period, so it needs 500 to 600 chill hours, which works perfectly with the Emerald, because if you can fit those in together, you're going to get your extended harvest period from early all the way into late season, into late July. So another thing about the southern highbush varieties are that they are self-fruitful, which means they will set fruit on their own without the need of pollination from an insect entering every bud and pollinating it. A downside is they don't have a uniform fruit set or ripening period, so some berries may ripen on a different schedule than other berries. That's okay, you just have to go through and hand pick them. Now the second species, which we do not carry, is the Rabbiteye. Now the Rabbiteye gets its name because before ripening it turns a pinkish red color, which resembles an albino bunny eye, and then it'll turn into that darker blue or powdery blue that we're used to with our blueberries. Now the thing is with the Rabbiteye, it is a native to our region, but it is known to be a later season crop, so it has anywhere between 300 to 750 chilling hours, and I'll explain what that means later. But we're typically going to harvest these around the same time we would for the commercial production, in that window from late April all the way through late July. The other downfall of the Rabbiteye is, just like the southern highbush, you're kind of sacrificing one quality for the other. So with the Rabbiteye, you are going to get a higher producing plant, but it's going to be smaller fruit. I will say though, the eating quality on Rabbiteyes is extremely well, and sometimes what you'll see is southern highbushes and Rabbiteyes are planted together in the same field to increase that cross-pollination and for better eating quality and extending that harvesting season. So those are those two species that we typically are going to grow here in the Southeast, and I highly recommend that you do your research and make sure you get things like species, varieties, and what we call chill hours for our region correct before you purchase any plants and put them in the ground. Because you don't want those plants to die off because they are expensive. You want to make sure that you end up with beautiful blooms and a beautiful harvest come the summer and spring season. So what are chilling hours, you may ask? I've repeated it multiple times through the video, but I'm going to go ahead and let you know that it is probably the most important thing when you're selecting varieties and species of blueberries. Chill hours are the amount of hours that a plant must spend under a temperature of 45 degrees before they will break dormancy in the spring heading into the summer. And this allows for a uniform, healthy, strong bud break come spring. Because if not, you'll get spindly, loose, unhealthy, weak growth that we really do not want on our plants, because it leads to a really bad fruit set and we won't get any berries. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with these few tips that I think are extremely important once you receive your blueberries or you go pick up your blueberries and you go to plant them. You're definitely going to want to make sure that your pH is between 4.5 and 5.2, because that is the ideal range that blueberries like. We have to remember they are a perennial understory plant in pine forests and sand hills and sometimes on creek beds. So they're going to come from areas where that pH is really low and acidic. And that's exactly what they love. So we have to make sure we're checking that pH and keeping it in that right range. Next, you're going to want to make sure if you have a super high water table or you live in a really wet zone that you raise those plants up above the ground, typically in a raised planting bed. And what you'll see commercially is they'll bring a box over and they'll create those raised beds. This just keeps those shallow roots above that water table and allows them to be healthy and not super soaked, even though they do like moist soils. But if they're super soaked, they will get Phytophthora and other root diseases that we really want to try to eliminate in the first place, because we don't want to deal with disease and pests with blueberries. It's not really a big problem. Lastly, you do want to make sure that you're not putting your blueberries in a really low point in your yard, as this is a frost pocket. And even though they need those chill hours, we do not want to freeze our plants, because it leads to damage to the buds and plant as a whole, and the plant becomes weak, and we have to eliminate or cut off a lot of that damage to prevent disease from entering our plants if it hasn't already. So just go ahead and do yourself a favor and make sure you put those in those raised beds in an elevated spot where the frost isn't going to get them, water's not going to soak those roots, and your pH is just right.